Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria QK.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mother Knows Death. On today's episode, we'll be discussing some of this week's news stories with our friend Clodagh Meaney. Clodagh is an assistant producer, reporter, and an occasional host of Ireland's leading true crime podcast, Crime World. There is a very interesting case coming out of Ireland today involving a human hand falling from the sky, and hopefully Clodagh will be able to shed some light on that for us. We'll also discuss Alec Baldwin and his claim that he suffers from PTSD, a hostage situation and shooting at a Pennsylvania hospital, and the dangers of heated fragrances like wax melts and more. Hi, Clodagh. We're so happy to have you here today.
Hi guys, I'm so happy to be here. I finally get to actually speak back to you when I'm listening to the podcast. Every time I'm listening, I'm like, oh my God, I should say this, or I'd say this if that was me on the podcast, or I should DM Maria about that. So I'm really happy to be here.
I love when you send me news stories and we're just talking about how ridiculous some of this stuff is, because it's just the world we live in anymore. It's like nothing surprises me anymore, especially the story we're going to get to in a little bit about the hand and the bird.
Yeah. I was really happy to see that was on the list for today because I have some interesting backstory on that for you as well.
Oh, we can't wait.
We can't wait. Okay, let's get started with the celebrity news because Maria can't wait for this one.
All right, so Alec Baldwin's new show premiered on TLC on Sunday night, which we all know I've talked a lot about him on here, and I don't know. I was going back and forth whether I was going to watch it or not, but I feel like in the best interest of our audience, of course, I should watch the show.
And when this is like totally up your alley. It's such trash.
I'm really not liking TLC nowadays. They're really going downhill. But I saw the trailer that they were talking about the Rush shooting, which we've covered for a significant amount of time on here, and I went to a CrimeCon lecture about it, so I am interested in it, but this first episode comes out and, you know, they're like introducing their whole family and everything. And of course, Hillary's involved and they touch on her accent situation. And for those of you that don't know, Alec Baldwin's wife is this like totally normal white woman from Boston that just was role playing as a Spanish person for years.
Oh my
and
God,
years
I
and
forgot about that.
Remember when she couldn't say cucumber on like the Today Show or whatever she was on?
Yeah, she was cutting a cucumber. For those of you that don't know this, I'm sure that there can't possibly be anyone that hasn't heard this story, but she was preparing food on the Today Show, and she said, and I'm going to grab this. It's how you say cucumber. And her primary English, or her primary language is English, so there's no reason that she can't recall the word cucumber and has this weird accent that she created.
It's just so weird because her excuse for all of this now is that she grew up bilingual, and so it's totally normal to be going in and out of accents. But I think most bilingual people are arguing that that does not happen. Like I don't know. I feel like you would dip more into the English instead of primarily speaking Spanish, and then vice versa. It's pretty weird.
Well, her mom, it's not like her mother is Spanish and that was going on in the house, because you could understand that. She just learned it, right?
Well, my biggest thing is her name is Hillary. Like, that's what she was born as. So how did she shift into the Spanish version of her name?
Well, you know what? Talk about this story, because I think that this actually ties into a lot of this. So,
with Russ?
Yeah. Like,
okay.
Why are they in the news this week? Besides the show.
Well, they're on the show, but they're talking about on the show that it's been a rough year because the show starts filming right before the summer of last year when he was about to go on trial. And she's saying that Alec Baldwin was diagnosed with PTSD from the shooting. And I don't know, like, what are both of your thoughts on this?
I don't know. I think it's like, if that was me in his situation and it was an accident or whatever, he probably would have PTSD after that. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it was an accident? It was not an accident? It hasn't really been a massive news story here in Ireland. We've kind of dipped in and out of it when sort of the big things were happening. I did somehow randomly see the trailer for that on the television the other day. I can't remember what I was watching or why it was on, but I remember seeing that going, oh yeah, I forgot that happened. But I've never really formed an opinion about whether or not I think he did it maliciously or not.
I don't think he did. I think it was just just negligence, right, on their part. I definitely don't think that he did, and I think he has PTSD, but I also think that he's a narcissist big time. Why would you be starting a reality TV show right before you're going on trial for something so serious if you're really distraught about it, right?
Mm.
Seems a little weird.
I think my biggest thing was I definitely was leaning hard into he did it, not intentionally, but he had a lot more responsibility behind the scenes that a lot of people didn't want to recognize. And then when I went to the lecture at CrimeCon, Court TV had put on, they had a gun expert go through the shooting and how it could have happened accidentally. And I understood that from a firearms perspective, and having them having interviewed other firearms experts, that the shooting itself could have been accidental. But I guess my biggest problem in all of it was that he's a producer. Has some responsibility behind the scenes. He was made aware of unsafe conditions and didn't really do anything to prevent it. So I don't know. I think in some regard he needs to be held responsible for that. But I don't think he purposely went to work that day and was like, I'm going to kill this lady.
Hopefully not.
No, I really hope not.
So PTSD, let's talk about that a little bit. I talk with my husband about this from time to time, obviously, because first responders, firefighters deal with a fair amount of this as well. And it used to be called shell shock. Have you guys heard that? I know you guys are way
Yeah.
younger than me.
Yeah, I've
So,
heard of it
just a
being referred
smidge.
to as that, all right, but more so in terms of like the people, veterans or whatever like that.
Yeah, so that's where the term comes from with vets. But interestingly enough, more women get it. Well, not that a woman couldn't be a vet, but this was back in the day when they were using the term shell shock and there wasn't that many females in military. But more women do get it than men. And they estimate that 3.5% of the population has had some form of PTSD. So it's not just from being in the military. It could be anytime you have any kind of a serious event. So for example, if in my situation with Gabe, like if he goes to a fire and there's a fatality or something really traumatic happens, but people have had it after being in a natural disaster or some kind of a terrorist attack, or rape victims or sexual assault victims also end up having it from time to time. So it could cause, there's 4 different things that can happen that are symptomatic of having PTSD. And which is interesting because I'm going to go over these with you guys and see what you think about this. So the first one is avoidance. People who have PTSD tend to avoid being in situations where their negative experience may trigger them again. So I think that that's interesting that, I don't know, like I feel like you might want to be in a situation where you're not talking about it all the time on a TV show and being in the limelight. You might want to kind of like lean back for a while, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think you and I in particular have talked about this a lot where, if this happened and he was really sorry and just kind of stepped back for a little bit, I think a lot of people will be more forgiving of him. But he is constantly in the news. The wife is constantly in the news. They're being over the top annoying. And now they have this show. Like, I'm sorry, as somebody that loves trash television, I have no interest in watching them go to the Hamptons all summer. I just don't care.
Well, I
Yeah.
think that's where the narcissist thing comes in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it is a strange thing to do. I mean, unless, again, I haven't seen much of it. I've only seen that trailer, but like, I wonder if they're going to go into his experience, so that you said they started filming the TV show right before the trial was supposed to begin, right?
Yeah, and remember, they were only in court for a week or two, and then
It went away magically.
Yeah, the prosecution they like fucked up really bad and forgot to disclose a crucial piece of information, and then the whole entire case got dismissed. So, yeah, I am interested, Clodagh, if they're also going to go, through his. I'm sure they are, because I'm sure that's the intention of the show, is to go through what he's experiencing. But I'm wondering, what if this went the other way and he ended up going to jail and they filmed this entire...
That's what I was just thinking as well. Like, what would they do with that? Like, would it be interesting to see her life, with her husband behind bars? Were they going to kind of turn it into a documentary style thing about him? Yeah, it's weird.
Well, that's what's weird to me, because if one of the signs of PTSD is avoidance, he certainly isn't avoiding it at all. Not even a little bit, right? I mean, he did that crazy. Remember, he did that interview where he was just talking all about himself, kind of. It was really self-centered and just crazy.
It is weird. Like you just don't have to do interviews. If you just quietly step back for a little bit, people would be willing to forgive you and kind of move on from it. But when you're just constantly putting yourself in the limelight about it and talking about it all the time, and now you have an entire reality show where you're going to be covering your side of it, it just seems really out of touch.
So other symptoms that you could see with PTSD are alterations in cognition and mood. So not being able to remember certain aspects or even the entire event, just completely blocking it out. Negative thoughts about one's feeling and oneself. So they were saying in this show that he was saying, why couldn't it have been me? And that, I mean, that's a normal reaction if something like this were to occur. And then finally, just these having the abnormal reactions to things like angry outbursts and stuff over than you normally would. So you could get help with this just taking medications and stuff, I'm sure. I mean, luckily he's well off and he could get the best doctors to help him through this. But you can't help but just feel terrible for, like, I just don't feel bad for them. This kid lost his mother, you know?
Mm.
Do you think he's using this as a form of exposure therapy? Like he thinks that constantly I just recently read a book about therapy, how sometimes constantly bringing something back up and up and up can never help you heal from it and actually makes the wound so much deeper than if you just kind of like accepted it happened in the moment, did some minor grieving about it, and then tried to go on with your life. But I feel like people could argue that him just constantly wanting to talk about it is his way of trying to heal, but it seems like he's not in a good place. He said in the show that he's happier asleep than awake, which is concerning considering he's a father of 8 people and he's a husband, and I don't know.
These people don't live normal lives. Come on.
No.
You think they take care of their 8 kids? Come on.
They only have 2 nannies, okay?
Oh my God, I love them.
So, Claudia, I'm interested in Ireland that this wasn't a big story. Is he kind of not even a big deal over there? Like nobody really cared about it?
Not really. Nobody really, it just was a big story because it was what it was. Somebody got shot on set and, people were wondering in the direct aftermath, I suppose like everyone else was, what happened? Why did he do it? Was it on purpose? Was it somebody's fault? Was the gun loaded? Was it, all the kind of questions that everyone else had? But then it just kind of fled out the news. Like he would never really make news here for doing anything anyway. So it was just because this crazy thing had happened that it sort of came into the headlines. And now because of that, anytime anything to do with it sort of happens, it will come up. But I don't see his new reality show making headlines over here. I must have been watching something on an American channel when I seen that that trailer, because it definitely wouldn't be on Irish TV.
Well, you're lucky. Okay, let's get into freak accidents and talk about this one because this one's outrageous.
All right, in Ireland on Friday, police were shocked when they got a call that partial human remains were found in a schoolyard. They get there's a human hand laying in the yard. Of course, they're trying to figure out how it got there, and they're going through CCTV, and they see that a bird carried it and dropped it in the yard. So you have some more backstory on this, Clodagh?
I have a little bit of backstory on it. So yeah, when this happened, this happened probably like 30 minutes from where I live, but the reason it was, I suppose, of interest, obviously it's a bizarre thing to happen. When the news came into the news desk, we were just ready to record a podcast, and one of the editors was like, oh, let me just, read the story to me. And we were both like, what? Like, where did it come from? My first thought was, oh, an animal must have found a body. And I'm trying to think, is there any missing people around there? Like, but I suppose a lot of people would have thought, so in 2020, the start of 2020, there was a guy driving down the road in a dark car, and he threw a sports bag out the window, and a guy went and checked in the sports bag, and he found some human remains with a pair of flip-flops. And this was like 5 minutes from where the incident with the hand at the school was. So then a couple of days later, there was hands and feet belonging to the same body found in a car burned out, and like a few months later the torso was found. But all these different dismembered body parts belonged to a teenager who had been reported missing. And it was all to do with a drugs gang. He had, crossed one of the leaders of the mob. And everyone was sort of thinking, oh my God, it's another dismembered hand, like in the same area. Is this something to do with this again? But then, of course, we found out that it was a 12-year-old apparently with a gas canister, and that's what happened. But there hasn't been much more reported on whether or not they've confirmed the hand belongs to the 12-year-old. But there was questions around whether or not this was a copycat incident of what happened before.
Wow, you guys got a lot of body part news over there.
Right? You're like, oh, is this just another body part?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
So when what they'll do is they'll bring the hand to the medical examiner's office or forensic pathologist, and they're going to do DNA testing to see if they could figure out that way. But another thing they're going to do is kind of a mini autopsy on it. They're going to look at it like an external exam. They're going to look at it and see if they could figure out what happened, because that could help narrow down who it belongs to. So first they'll look at the margin. That's the area where it was removed from the body, and they'll see if there was any signs that the person was still alive when their hand was removed. So they'll look for hemorrhage. And then they'll also look at the edge to see, was it torn off of a person? Was it cut with a sharp instrument off of a person? So they're going to look for all sorts of different things like that. It's possible that the hand could be partially decomposed, although it can't be that decomposed because it still seems like it was together as a hand. And they also can x-ray it, and they could see that's one of the ways. I mean, obviously, if you look at a hand, you could tell it's from a little kid, but you could do x-rays and look at the bones to see if you could estimate the age of the person as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting that they could determine that way. I think it's good that it seems like the school was on a break, so none of the kids were in the yard. Can you imagine being a little kid?
God, yeah, and there's the bird drops a hand from the sky. Like, I can't imagine there's too many people going around missing their hand. So I would assume that they're able to kind of narrow it down pretty easily.
Well, I don't know, because near you it seems like a good amount of
more
people are
common
missing
for
their
sure.
hands.
So they'll also determine if the hand's a left or right hand. That's a easy one too. So this kid, you're saying he was playing with a gas can and there was an explosion?
Yeah, that seems to what happened. I think the night before, the Thursday evening, something happened with a gas canister and it exploded. I don't know what exactly he was supposed to have been doing with it. And the hand obviously, I assume, blew off. I assume he went to A&E or something like that with, missing his hand, and whether they couldn't find it and a bird just sort of, I suppose, I don't know, if the projection of a gas canister would have blown the hand away, I suppose. And maybe it landed somewhere that a bird was able to get at it, and that was how it got there. But I'm sure there will be more. There would definitely be follow-up, because it's one of those bizarre little stories that happens here every now and then.
Yeah, can you imagine if they didn't have the surveillance footage to see that the bird had dropped it there and trying to piece together how exactly it got from point A to point B?
Well, I actually have a similar story to this,
How?
believe it or not. So when I was rotating at the medical examiner's office, one of the investigators, so this is like a story told by me and now I'm retelling it, but one of the investigators told me that they were on the scene once there was a person that got hit by a train, right? And then a week later, there were some kids that were walking home from school along a train track, and a kid found a human nose. But at the time, they didn't put two and two together that it had anything to do with the train accident. So they get a call at the medical examiner's office like, hi, a child just found a human nose. We need to investigate this. And then they were able to determine that it came from the person that was hit by the train. But how nuts is that?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's horrible. Imagine like being that young and finding something like that.
I'd be stoked. I'd be like, yes.
I
Mom,
feel like
look what I found.
Yeah.
I feel like my brain could not even register it was a human body part. I'd just be like, nah, it must be some Halloween thing or something. There's no way.
It's like, that's the way everyone's always like, oh, I thought it was a mannequin, and it never
Yeah.
is.
There was that case we talked about. Was it?
There was the sex doll on the beach that somebody thought was a real person.
Yeah.
Do you know about this?
No.
There was one of those, and then remember we were like Googling sex dolls and it was in our Amazon searches
Now I
for
have-
weeks afterwards.
Well, yeah, and guess what? it's still there. And my kids were looking through Amazon the other day, and Lucia was like, well, that's weird, because it says like things you might like. And I was like, what? I look at it and I was like, oh, don't ask, Lucia.
You know, I used to work for eBay, and I remember we got a call from a guy one time, and he was, you know, because obviously Google ads, they are what you are looking up, whatever. And I remember he was ringing, he was like, every time I'm on your website, I'm getting ads for porn. There's just porn websites. And we had to try and explain to him that Google ads are based on his search history.
I love that. That's great.
That is awesome. All right, let's move on to this next case. In Australia, a 10-year-old boy was making a grilled cheese. This story bothers me because I could totally see this happening to me because I'm such a klutz. So he's making this grilled cheese in his kitchen. He trips and lands backwards on an open dishwasher, and there was a steak knife sticking up in the bottom, and he got stabbed in the spine.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so the mama is putting out a warning saying, hey, make sure when you put knives in the dishwasher, don't put them upward, which you really have to be careful with that and teach children. I like, one part of me is just like, this is awesome that a 10-year-old was making a grilled cheese. I love that. Teach kids how to cook early. It's great, but you have to teach everyone knife safety. And it's probably, honestly, the mom was probably the one that loaded the dishwasher, although a child could have too. But I'm kind of anti putting the knives in the dishwasher anyway, because I had a story once. One of my followers had submitted me a case of a similar thing, that a knife had fell out of the dishwasher and like stabbed her right in the foot. It was stuck in her foot and she had to go to the hospital with it. And that always freaked me out.
I always wonder about this because even though we cover stories like this and I know I'm such a klutz, like I always wear like my sandals when I'm cooking or just no shoes at all. And I'm like, this is going to be a major situation one day. Well, it's important to note that he's okay, but just barely. It was only a millimeter difference. So what do they do at the hospital when kids come in like this?
Well, the imaging is really crazy because they brought him in with the knife still in his back, and it just missed his spinal cord by millimeters, they said, which could have paralyzed him, really. So they have to take it out very carefully. Sometimes they'll do it under image guided. They'll use well, obviously, like they can't use an MRI machine because of the metal, but they'll do an image guided removal of it to make sure that they're not hitting vital structures, because you have to think about, if a knife is inside of a person, sometimes it could be either right near a blood vessel or poking a blood vessel, and you definitely don't want to pull it out of a blood vessel if it's plugging it up. So they have to really be careful when they're pulling something like that out, which is why when EMS arrived and saw him in that condition, they just bring him to the hospital with the knife still in place.
Yeah, that was really quick thinking, because I'd be straight away. Like, I think I would
Right?
naturally just go to remove it, and like, that was like really smart of the mother to like leave it in there.
No, it really.
It
I
looks
just-
like it was real. It looks like to me like
Jammed
if you
in
just,
there.
yeah, like it looks like it got stuck in the bone or something. Like it's deep in there. It's a big knife too. If you see the imaging, it's crazy.
Well, there's a heartwarming element to this story too, because apparently when he was in the hospital, they were doing these creative workshops, and he learned that he had a talent to do marionette puppeting.
Oh, that's so cute.
Aw.
He would have never known.
It's such a random thing. Of course he would have never known, because who is interacting with puppets in the wild?
True.
At least there was a good outcome to this.
Oh, man.
This episode is brought to you by The Gross Room.
Guys, in the gross room this week, we had a lot of requests for Brian Laundrie's autopsy report, because this new series came out on Netflix called, what was it called?
American Murder.
American Murder with Gabby Petito. And so many of you had questions about Brian Laundrie's autopsy report. So we went through that and did a high profile death dissection on him yesterday. So you could check that out at thegrossroom.com. Also, other articles that we covered this week are, Maria wrote an article about a human egg farm.
Well, that's coming soon.
It didn't even come out yet. Yeah, it's so fresh that we didn't even post it yet. But it's freaking crazy. We talked about 3D ultrasounds and my personal experience with one when I was pregnant with one of my kids and how it ruined my pregnancy, basically. Bipolar medication during pregnancy and a terrible case of something happening because of that. And We also have a super crazy rectal foreign body video. Did you see that, Maria?
Not yet. I haven't logged
Oh.
in yet today.
It's so crazy because we always talk about these rectal foreign bodies and we never see what it looks like when someone actually has something stuck up their butt and has to get it removed. And it just makes your hiney pucker. I'll tell you that right now, but
Well, and as always, you can anticipate the coming soon bestiality high profile dissection
that we have half started, but we just keep getting bombarded with other requests, but it's coming.
We were going to write it this week, but like when 20 of you guys are asking for one thing in a couple of days, we can't ignore it. So
give the people what they want.
Give the people what they want. You can head over to thegrossroom.com for more info and to sign up for only $5.99 for the month.
Okay. What's next?
We have
True crime. Oh yeah,
next.
the true crime.
All right, so this wasn't very far from us, right? Like only a couple hours.
Yeah, it was in York, Pennsylvania.
York County, I think.
York County.
So Saturday morning, this guy went into a Pennsylvania hospital with a semi-automatic pistol and zip ties. So he headed to the ICU where one of his loved ones had just been treated and ended up dying. So not only did he shoot a couple people in the unit as I guess his way of not taking the death of his loved one well, but he also took a couple of the hospital staff members hostage.
This is so scary if you work in a hospital, really. And
Yeah.
it seems like the guy was they just keep saying in the article his loved one died. I heard today from one of my friends that it possibly could have been a fiance or something, but apparently this person had a terminal illness and he couldn't accept it, and he believed that the people at the ICU were responsible for this person's death.
It's just really horrible. You want to think a hospital is a really safe place, and then I guess, I never think of doctors and nurses being targeted because we often talk about how judges and lawyers are targeted quite often, but you don't think about someone dying and their loved one trying to come back and kill you because of something like this, I guess.
What's scary is that this guy went in and took these people hostage. He went in at 10:30 in the morning and he wasn't killed until about 11:15. So that was almost 40 minutes of hell for these people. He went in and he zip tied up a nurse. He shot a doctor. He shot a nurse. He killed a police officer. The police tried to go back and help, and he was holding people hostage, shooting guns at the police and everything, and they weren't able to. When they encountered him again, they shot and killed him. Thank God. Imagine being a patient in the hospital while this was going on and you're in a bed, especially if you're in the ICU, you're really, really sick. And think about hearing this on the news and your family being there or patients. I mean, 10:30 in the afternoon, there were probably families there visiting. Just such a scary situation.
So
Yeah.
traumatizing as well for them. Like, not only to, obviously, like you said, if you're in ICU, it's something wrong and your family hears about it, surely they're going to be panicking about you as well. And even to come out the other side of that, it's got to be pretty traumatic.
Yeah, at first, before I guess they released the motive and the connection to the loved one being there, I didn't know if it was going to turn into some, Luigi situation where, something happened and he was protesting against the hospital. So when I first saw the story broke, that was always a concerning element because, we're having this big argument of, do you take the law in your hands because you don't like how something's going down, basically. But I guess this is just, a component of having a loved one that's ill that people don't understand, and not everybody appreciates the effort of the hospital staff.
Clodagh probably has no idea what you're even talking about because they don't even have, you guys don't even have health insurance, right?
Well, we have what's called the HSE, which is basically free. It's very, very cheap.
What's cheap? I just want to know so we could hear it, because when I tell you what we pay, you're not going to believe it.
So you can have private health insurance if you want to go to a private hospital or get up the waiting lists to see consultants and things like that and get private rooms or whatever. But I think it's I know in America that you have to pay for every single thing to do with childbirth. Like skin to skin contact, $50, please. All that sort of thing. But for here, it's basically free maternity care all through your pregnancy, giving birth, all that sort of stuff. Absolutely free. Like a stay in hospital is like €80 a night, and that's capped at like 10 nights in a year. So you know, if you spend 11 nights, you only pay for the 10, and that includes like MRIs, x-rays, blood tests, everything is sort of included. And the same, like if I go to the doctor and he gives me a note to go to the A&E, and I have to get an MRI or whatever it might be, like all of that is covered free as part of, you know, well, it's 70 quid or whatever to go to the doctor, but that letter gets me whatever I might need at the hospital for free.
And you don't pay per month for that?
No. So if you want to have private health insurance, you can. Some people get it because, you know, like I said, you kind of get into private hospitals. So you go to a hospital, you get a private room, things like that. You might get seen quicker by consultants. And that can be like maybe €200-300 a month, depending on how many people in the family you want on the plan, or how, like, you know, thorough and how much coverage you have in the plan. How much is it do you guys have to pay?
I mean, my health insurance for me and my husband is $900 a month. And then
What?
And then it barely covers anything. I just got an MRI and it was another $900.
Oh my God.
They only covered a percentage of it.
See, mine is, my husband pays through his work, so he pays almost $2,000 and a month, and his employer pays the difference. So that's way
more than my mortgage.
That.
What?
I know, it's outrageous. I know. And then on top of that, I mean, ours is pretty good though, because once we go, like when we go pick up medicine, it's only $5, and the doctor's appointment might be $10 or something, which is cheap for us. Yeah. So mostly everything's covered, but yeah, that's so. But you've heard about this. Did you even hear about this case with this guy that killed the healthcare executive?
Luigi? Oh, yes. Yeah. that was a very interesting case to us. But like
it's interesting that you guys even like care about it. You know, I think it's cool.
Think we're so fucked up over here.
Yeah. Well, just because we know how expensive things are in the States, like even if you're here and you're on welfare, like you get a medical card that covers everything for free, or a doctor's visit card, and then like our prescriptions and stuff are like capped per month for the family and things like that. So there is things that make it cheaper. Like I don't personally buy insurance because I'm like, there's no point. It's just cheaper for me to actually just go public and pay when I need it. But when Luigi, like when that story broke, like it was just so interesting when we found out the motive behind it, because obviously I was actually in the States when he was caught, and I remember when I was there, I was like, oh, maybe he's like around here somewhere. Like you never know. But no, we've been following that story, at least I have, with great enthusiasm. I'm very interested to see how his trial plays out, and I've been thoroughly enjoying the memes.
Well, I really don't think in America they can get a jury that's going to be fair, because every single person in some way has been affected by the healthcare system here.
Let me tell you, so my youngest has medical issues. She has a chronic bone disease, and her doctor called me yesterday and said they want to put her on a new medicine. This doctor told me that she's like, it's going to take a couple weeks to see if the insurance will approve it. So just keep taking the other one until you get approved. Like I just have to wait weeks for them to even tell me if I could get it or not. It's so outrageous.
That is like, it is just insane how it works in the States. Like obviously I don't have first-hand experience living there, but from what I've seen on television and stuff like that, people get jobs purely so they'll have, you know, insurance, which is just, you know, should be a basic human right that people have access to, or not even insurance, but medical care. Like it's just bizarre.
I actually only went to college to get health insurance for my kid. That's why I started college, because I wasn't going to be covered under my mom, because you get now you get kicked off when you're what, 26?
Yeah, 26.
But when I was a teenager, it was you got kicked off when you were 18. That's what, before that law came into place. And I thought, okay, well, what, I have to get health insurance for me and my kid. That's the only, how am I going to get a job? I need to get a job that has health insurance. Like that was a motivating factor for me. It's crazy.
That is, that is crazy.
Okay, let's get on to some medical news.
All right. In India, this 26-year-old man was experiencing symptoms including a persistent cough, sudden weight loss, and insomnia. Initially, he was diagnosed with a lung infection, but doctors did more testing, and what did they find?
So they did a CT scan and they saw that he had this, they said they had a lower lung infection. And at some point they discovered that there was a lump-like area in the lung. So I don't know what forced them to do surgery, because it looks like that might not have been seen until after they did some kind of surgery. But regardless, he had some kind of a lump. And when they cut it open, they found what appeared to be a plastic pen cap.
So what's wild about this is they asked his family if he had swallowed anything, and his brother said, I don't think recently, but he swallowed a pen cap like 20 years ago when he was 5. He's 26 now.
Yeah, so they brought him to the hospital. The parents brought him to the hospital and they couldn't find anything in his stomach, and they said, "Okay, well, I guess he passed it. We can't find it."
I mean, just how does it stay in that long without not showing any problems for
Well,
20 years?
The guy's had chronic cough, unexplained weight loss, insomnia. He's been having symptoms. The chronic cough is definitely for sure. So it's just like any other thing that we talk about, IUDs or any kind of foreign object that you put in, breast implants. Like, your body is just like, I don't like this, and I'm going to build a wall around it. Some people can have foreign objects embedded in their body forever and never have problems, and then other people have problems. Obviously, you're going to have problems if you have a foreign object in your lung for all that time. So he probably formed what's called a granuloma around this thing, this pen cap, and it's, the body's way of walling off this thing that doesn't want to be there, So they were able to take it out, and hopefully the guy probably won't have any issues anymore.
So I guess I'm confused. Like, how did was it in his lung, or?
Yes.
I guess that's what's confusing me.
Okay, so when they thought he swallowed this pen cap, he didn't swallow it. He aspirated it. It went inside of his lung at the time. So it got stuck so far deep inside of his lung. That's what happened. It never was in his GI tract, which, listen, from a medical perspective, if you know that a child ingested a foreign body and you don't see it, you need to start thinking about things like that. I'm not sure why they didn't do any additional workup. I mean, it was 20 years ago. I don't know what hospital. This wasn't in America, right?
No, it was in India.
Yeah, so I don't know what their protocols are. I would think, though, that in 2025, if you brought in a kid and said they swallowed this and they didn't see it, they would do other testing to see if it was somewhere else, because just doing something like an x-ray, that something like that might not show up because it's not metal. It might show up. I'm just not really sure, but yeah, this is kind of a crazy case. It's a cool story now, but imagine having a cough your entire adult life, and then just finding out that this is what it was from.
I mean, have you ever breathed like food in by accident? It's the worst feeling ever.
Yeah. Can you imagine an entire pen cap? I was actually going to ask, because you definitely know this. Is this a myth? Like, like one of those Marilyn Manson took out his ribs myth. Or do pen caps have like little holes on the tops to stop you from, like, if you breathe it in, to keep you breathing?
That's an I've never heard of that, but that actually makes sense.
Yeah, if you look at any pen cap, there's I'm just looking around at mine. They've all got like little holes in the top. And I was told it was just to make sure that you could still breathe if you accidentally swallowed it.
It's probably possible because so many people put them in their mouth, and this is not the first person that's inhaled a pen cap. So there might have been a lawsuit at some point, but you have to have the cap on because it keeps the ink dry. So that might have been the compromise that these companies came to. But you are right. I'm thinking about the different types of pens that I use, and they all have some form of a small little hole at the top of them. So you're probably right with that.
Have you ever been to Philly?
Yes.
Have you been to the Mütter Museum?
No.
So we have this like medical oddities museum here, but they have drawers of stuff people swallowed, and most notably it's like, embroidery needles, hairpins,
and bobby pins
Yeah.
And I put a bobby pin in my mouth every single day, and I think about it. Like, I'm extra careful because I put it in to split it with my teeth.
Of course, yeah. That
And
sounds
it's like,
fascinating, though.
it's cool. Yeah, they just have these drawers that you pull out, and you could look at all of them. And a lot of them are from 100 years ago. So it's just cool that you could see that, like, people don't use hairpins anymore like that, so it's cool.
I hope stories like this help our listeners triple think when they're doing something, because I'm always like sticking embroidery needles in my mouth, and I'm like, in particular, a couple weeks ago when my husband was driving, and I'm like, if he stops quickly, this is going to be a serious problem. So I really have to get out of I keep saying it so often. I have to get out of the habit of doing it, but it's difficult. All right, let's talk about our last story. So a new study has come out to say that scented wax melts can cause the same level of pollution in the air as diesel engines.
Do you guys, so what's the culture over there in Ireland? Like, are you using candles a lot to make your house smell good?
Yes, I'm a big candle lover. Tea lights, scented candles, wax melts, everything, all the time, everywhere. Big fan of them.
Well, you're going to die now, okay?
Yeah, great.
So it seems like that they created these wax melts because they thought originally it would be less pollution than burning a typical flame candle. But in the process, they put more fragrance to make it stronger when you melt them. And then that is putting these particles into the air that are not, apparently they're thinking that they're not safe for us to be breathing in. They don't have exact studies, but some other things that put off particles similar to this have caused cardiac issues and respiratory issues. So they're going to be doing more studies on it, saying that even after something as little as 20 minutes of exposure can cause a person to be having problems. And God, it's so scary because this isn't just for the wax melts, but it's like those plug-in. You ever see those things, those plug-in oil things that, what are they called? That Bath and Body Works or whatever, or Yankee has them.
Yeah, they're just scented, they're just like scented
Yeah,
plugins.
but they're also saying like the aromatherapy oils, like all of that stuff.
This sucks because, I mean,
this does suck. You know what? This is why I chose this story this week, because this sucks.
When you picked the stories yesterday and I first started reading it, I was like, on Sunday alone, I know I burnt a candle for probably 11 hours straight, and I was sitting in the room most of the time. So I'm like, this is great.
I have a scented candle on my desk burning at all times. Or sometimes two. Yeah, I love my candles. That's really sad now. My mom doesn't burn candles because she's like, no, that's really bad for your lungs. And I was like, you're crazy. No, they're not, it's not. But now I can see that she was right.
Yeah. It's the worst to tell your mom that they're right?
I know.
I mean, I'd say.
I hope she doesn't listen to this.
No, it really is like, first of all, can we not have anything? Like, nothing sets the mood better than a nice candle. You wake up, it's a nice sunny 70-degree day. You're going to light a nice anthropology candle and just have like a really good day. I don't know. This really sucks. I hope, I guess it's too late for me because I'm addicted, so I'm not going back at this point. But
I don't know. After reading this article, I feel like candles are the safer alternative at this point. I just bought a humidifier, and it came with these aromatherapy drops that you could put in it, and you put it on at night, and you're like, oh, this is like a spa experience. It smells so good, and I'm just like, yeah, cool, that's great. It's things like that.
So this article was saying that the scented wax melts were marketed as offering less pollution than candles, but do they have any responsibility now because this is deemed false advertising?
This is like every single thing that ever occurred in the world. Like, I'll give you two examples. Number one, when I was a little kid, we used to use paper bags at the grocery store all the time, and then all of a sudden they were like, this isn't good, we're going to start using plastic bags, they're better, we don't want to cut down so many trees for these bags. And now look where we're at. Example number two, Percocets and opioids. I mean, like, let's just go down the list of things that were supposed to be good that are, now they're not good. They were this
Vaping.
Alternative. Yeah, what else? Like,
well, Clodagh, we live in New Jersey, and a couple years ago, they put this ban on plastic bags. So, like, if you go to the store or anything, you have to bring your own bags, or you have to buy these reusable ones. And then now that it's been in effect for a couple of years, studies have come out that the new reusable bags are 3 times worse for the environment than the plastic bags. And, there's like issues with the manufacturing overseas and everything like that. So like not only are they bad for the environment, but they cost more money. They're causing all these other issues. So now I heard they're reversing the ban soon.
Oh, see, it's rare to actually go into a shop here and get a plastic bag. I think we might have been one of the first countries to introduce a levy. So you had to pay like 15 cents for a plastic bag or bring your own. So then people started getting reusable bags. But now they've phased out plastic bags. Like it's only if you go to like a shop in the middle of nowhere that they don't have, the paper bags. But it's mostly plastic here too. But do you know what the annoying thing is? Every time I go somewhere, I'm like, oh, I forgot my bag. So now I have to buy another reusable bag. So now I have just so many. And it's just every time it happens, forget to bring them. So now, which doesn't make sense because then you have to rebuy a thicker plastic, right?
Yes, when I was in California, they would charge the 10 or 15 cents for the bag, and I'm like, okay, I'll buy this, and then, I have it, and I do reuse them. I will bring my lunch in them, I use them as trash bags, things like that. But then you're buying this totally useless bag, half of them rip after the first use. So this is why they're causing such more damage.
And you feel bad if you're using it as a bin bag, because you're like, oh no, it's actually a bit decent, I could use this for something else, yeah.
Yeah, like you're right. I feel guilty using one of those bags just to get litter or put the cat litter in, I'm like, this is too good for cat litter. But then I seriously have in my basement, they should have a program where you can bring them back maybe. Because I have hundreds of them. It's outrageous.
No, it really is. And then off of your point of like Oxycontin and stuff, that when we were talking about a couple weeks ago, that new drug they've made that they claim is non-addictive, like that's what they also said about oxys. So let's wait a couple years.
This is my fear with drugs like Ozempic and stuff like that, because you just hear about like there's this new thing that's supposed to be that it's supposed to solve all our problems, and we know how that goes down.
No, totally.
Every single time. All right, Clodagh, so what do you got going on over there? Like, tell us what's going on in Ireland that we need to know about.
Well, body parts everywhere all the time. Just a bit of everything. I don't know. Sorry. I don't really have any more news on that front. And every time something bizarre happens that I'm like, oh, that's very Mother Knows Death, I send it to Maria. So you guys are kept well informed.
Did you guys cover the Conor McGregor case?
Yes. So I covered the trial. So I was there in the courtroom every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was a huge. Does he live there now?
He does. Or? He lives here. He lives in Kildare, which is another county over. And he was in court every day. I think he's back in court next week. There's, he had to give a sworn affidavit to the judge to say that he had gotten rid of the CCTV footage that was as part of the trial, because he was threatening to, or at least one of his business colleagues was threatening to use the CCTV footage as part of a promotion in Italy for his drinks brand, sorry. So he might have to come before the judge and swear and tell him exactly what he did with it, because, the judge said that his explanation for what he did with the copies of the CCTV wasn't sort of robust enough. So it looks like he's going back to court for that. And of course he is, there's been numerous accusations made in the States, and they seem to be kind of settled and dropped. But there is one that seems to be sticking, right? The one in New York, the Wall Street banker.
I think so. I haven't been keeping tabs as much on those cases, but I know there's definitely other incidents than the one he was just on trial for.
Yeah.
Wait, so this is like sexual assault cases you're talking about?
Yeah.
So there's more than the one that you just did?
Yeah.
Yeah, remember I was telling you, like, when we were just covering the other one, that I didn't even know about that case because I thought it was another one that just happened more recently. So
that was the one that happened in Miami or something, or where did it happen?
Oh yeah, I think was it Miami? I think I know the woman who's suing him was a Wall Street banker, I believe. or at least she worked in some sort of high-powered exec in Wall Street. And I think that was in Miami. And I think he assaulted, or was allegedly assaulted, the mascot for the team.
Oh,
There was
yeah.
the mascot, and then... Sorry I'm unprepared on this topic, but I feel... Was the one that you guys just covered, was that the one where he went in the bathroom with the woman?
That was the tampon one.
That was
right?
the same... Yeah,
That's the Miami one.
The
So
Miami
then
one,
the
yeah.
one that was in Dublin was it was an incident that happened in a hotel in Dublin.
Yes. Yeah, I knew about the one at the basketball game and what happened there, but wasn't he alleged to have assaulted 2 women there, the mascot, and then another woman in the bathroom?
Yeah. So I think that's the Wall Street woman.
Yes. Okay, so yeah,
This is so outrageous that we're talking about this. That like everybody's just kind of like, oh yeah, he assaulted this one and assaulted this one. Like, why is this still happening?
well, these are people that have spoken out too, so I doubt it happens one time and then it goes to trial. I don't want to like say anything for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if even more people came forward over time. You have to think about it, like he must have, this is my opinion, he must have CTE in some capacity. Have you seen the fights he's gotten into? It's just nuts.
What's CTE?
Oh, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. It's
This
due
is-
to multiple blows to the head that causes your brain shrinkage over time and
It's
dementia.
It's a big problem over here because it happens in a lot of football
I still
players.
think he's
Is this like the Phineas Gage sort of thing where he, was hitting the head with a bat and his brain chemistry changed because of the injury?
Yeah.
Like he become more aggressive and stuff like that.
Yes,
Something like that,
yes.
right?
So we cover it a lot over here because it happens in a lot of football players. We just had a case last week talking about a professional hockey player that had been diagnosed with it after he died. And there was a wrestler that killed his whole family and himself.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a pretty big topic over here, I guess, because just sports. I don't know. You guys probably have it in regular football. When I'm talking about football, I mean American football. But you guys probably have it in some capacity with soccer, as we call it. But
I don't know. Probably soccer, rugby. I don't know if you have rugby in the US, which I don't really know anything about sports, but to me, rugby looks like American football, kind of.
it's
Without
very
helmets.
similar.
Okay. Yeah. And then
I
we
have no idea. Like, I just know that they like look cute in their uniforms.
We have on our American football team a guy that used to play rugby, I believe, in New Zealand. They like drafted him because it's similar enough that he was able to switch over.
Do they
That's
wear
what-
helmets in American football?
They do, but it's,
Okay.
it's barely
does not.
protection, and you have like a 250-pound man tackling another one to the ground, and it's just aggressive. But I wouldn't be surprised if in some capacity these MMA fighters have huge issues with it too.
They do. It started, actually, this used to be called dementia pugilistica, which is named after boxers. So it was called punch drunk. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
So it originated with boxers back in the day. That's when they first started seeing these changes in the brain in people that were getting repetitive head trauma. And so he's a candidate for sure. But like, who cares if he has that or not? Like, it still doesn't excuse him from.
I'm not saying
You
it's
can't just go raping everyone. Like, you just can't do that. Regardless,
I thought you were
if
just about to quote.
I was trying to quote Antoine.
Oh my god. No, I it's certainly not an excuse, but you have to think, these incidents, let's say, are more common in people that are in these professions or constantly getting hit in the head. So, I don't know. All right. Well, Clodagh, tell everybody where they can find you.
So I am the assistant producer of Crime World podcast. Sometimes I host episodes, sometimes I report. Like I said, I reported on the Conor McGregor trial. We usually cover mostly Irish crime, lots of gangland crime here in Ireland, believe it or not. And yeah, I'm on social media at Clodagh.Meaney on Instagram.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks. We hope to
Thank
see
you
you soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to Mother Knows Death. As a reminder, my training is as a pathologist assistant. I have a master's level education and specialize in anatomy and pathology education. I am not a doctor and I have not diagnosed or treated anyone, dead or alive, without the assistance of a licensed medical doctor. This show, my website, and social media accounts are designed to educate and inform people based on my experience working in pathology so they can make healthier decisions regarding their life and well-being. Always remember that science is changing every day and the opinions expressed in this episode are based on my knowledge of those subjects at the time of publication. If you are having a medical problem, have a medical question, or are having a medical emergency, please contact your physician or visit an urgent care center, emergency room, or hospital. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother Knows Death on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks!